Hello and welcome to the second episode of the Extreme Sports Performance Podcast. My name's Ryan Blake, I'm the founder and CEO of Extreme Sports Performance. In this episode, I'm going to be speaking to Brendan Chaplin. Brendan is a friend and a colleague who I've known for nearly 10 years. He's a mixed martial artist, a strength and conditioning coach, the owner of several businesses, an entrepreneur, an author, a speaker, and many, many more things. The questions I'm going to ask Brendan are the questions that I ask all my guests. Who he is, what he does, where has he come from, and what has he done along the way? What are his 3 key moments from his career so far? What are his 3 top areas of interest? What are his 3 most valuable things that he's learned? Who are his top 3 influencers? What are his top 3 resources for information? What are his top 3 sports performance exercises and drills? What are his top 3 pieces of advice in life, exercise, sport or business? And where people can find him. We also continue to freestyle a little bit at the end, talk about a little bit about things outside the box. We really enjoyed recording this podcast. We really hope you enjoy listening to it. Here we go. Hi Brendan, thanks for joining us on the second episode of the Extreme Sports Performance Podcast. Please can you tell everyone who, for those who don't know, who you are and what you do?
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it. It's a really good thing you're doing with the podcast, and anything that gets people engaged and working together it gets my vote. So yeah, I'm the founder and CEO of Strength and Conditioning Education. And so essentially what we do is provide education and opportunities for fitness professionals and aspiring coaches to really get ahead and achieve the success that they're looking for in their lives. And that's based on my experience as an S&C coach and a martial artist and a business person and really just the sort of, if you like, the mistakes that I've made along the way, trying to help people to avoid those. So, yeah.
Fantastic. That's a great intro, Brendan. Thanks very much. And I do believe that you're in your car on the way from the gym to somewhere.
Yes, yeah. I am. I'm heading up the ring road in Leeds at the moment. Actually, in a bit of traffic, which is not uncommon. So yeah, just did a quick session this morning and headed to a meeting as well. So it's all good. It's all part of the game, isn't it?
Exactly, mate. Is that kind of part of your regular daily routine, that just to get a session in first and then get on with your day?
Typically, yeah, I try to, and I try to get at least 5 sessions a week in.
Yep.
And sometimes more. I'm training for a half marathon that's in May, and so those types of things. Then I'll sort of push in some extra sessions. But as a default, I try to get at least 5 in, of which normally 3 would be more of a lifting-based session, and 2 would be more of an endurance conditioning type of session. But more importantly, it's a good start to the day. It's not totally about what you do in the gym. It's about the routine and just getting up and getting in the gym and getting things flowing. You know what I mean?
I completely agree. I think there's something that I've learned as I've got older is the earlier you get up, the more you can get done at the start of the day, the more productive the rest of your day seems to be. Whether you're you're in the gym coaching or in the office working, it definitely helps.
It does. It totally helps. I went through a phase where I got married a few years ago, and prior to that, I'd been really just hammering the business side of things, just trying to stay above water with the company. And I looked at a video of myself in the like a replay, because we do videos for content and things like that on the website.
Yeah.
And I looked at this video and I was like, Jesus, I have put some weight on here. I'm just not happy with that at all. And since then, I basically said, this is just not acceptable. And I've pretty much hit that 5 sessions a week every week now for the last 3 years,
Fantastic.
Something like that. And I started off with just literally saying, as long as I show up in the gym, I don't care what I do in the gym. And essentially planning just 20 minutes and 30 minutes maximum of effort Quite often I still go in and just do a hard 20 to 30 minute session. But now I've got a bit more capacity. I can push on for 45, 50, 60 minutes if I need to. But frankly, you don't often need to do more than 30 minutes if you push hard and really go for it in there. And so that's sort of become the habit that I've formed over the last few years, you know?
Yeah, that's great. I'm much the same, mate, because I don't really train until after the end of the day, or at the end of the day. And again, time is sort of valid commodity that doesn't seem to be around as much these days as it used to be. So, like going in 30 to 45 minutes hard and then just getting out there, it's better than kind of going in there soft for 90 minutes, which you see a lot of people doing still these days, and you just think, why?
You wonder what they're actually doing in there, don't you?
Yeah, exactly.
We train together. I think we've got a similar sort of mindset towards that.
Exactly. So I've just slightly digressed there, mate, from the start of the other questions, but it's nice to freestyle. So for those, again, for people who might not know too much about yourself, could you just briefly tell us where you've come from and what you've kind of done along the way in your kind of professional journey so far?
Yeah, so I would still define myself first and foremost as a martial artist, and I was in my teens. That was what I wanted to do. I trained all over the world, went to train with a guy called Dan Inosanto in the States, who's Bruce Lee's #1 student, and I wanted to get that knowledge right from the source. And I actually then settled in Manchester training with a gym there, with a straight blast gym, and that's the same gym that people like Conor McGregor have come out of, and some of those prominent fighters in mixed martial arts. And that was a real kind of important time of my life, because it taught me, the process of learning and development is far more important than the outcome.
Yeah.
And then a sort of defining moment where I got gifted a video which was all about strength and conditioning. I didn't know what it was at the time, but I watched it and it blew my mind. So I went to the States to learn from a guy called Mike Boyle. Did an internship over there with Boyle, and I came back and ended up getting a job with the English Institute of Sport. I moved from the EIS, this was pre-Beijing, 2008, moved from the EIS to British Tennis, Durham University, did some stuff with Durham Cricket, and then went to Huddersfield Giants and ended up at Leeds Beckett, or Leeds Metropolitan as it was at the time, Leeds Carnegie University. And all along the way I did some personal training, and I did some strength and conditioning privately, so I worked with MMA fighters throughout my career and many other athletes. And then in 2010 I founded Strength and Conditioning Education, which is the business that I'm running now. And we basically went from doing really sort of informal gatherings and clinics of education to more online, to full qualifications, mentorships and development programs, and now we even do business mentoring and marketing support and things like that. So that's sort of, in a whirlwind, the last kind of 13 to 15 years of my career.
Fantastic. No, thanks for that. That's a really nice summary of everything you've done. I mean, I was just thinking about this the other day, actually, because we first met when we were both working in tennis.
I
think I started at Wynn International Academy at Bisham in I think it was 2000 and 2008. So we're getting on nearly 10 years, mate, of knowing each other, which is I know it's a bit of a blast from the past. But I said in my previous episode that it's actually really nice to be able to stay in touch with colleagues and now good friends from the past, because you've just been through so much together and seen so many things change in the industry. That it just creates quite a nice, honest and tight professional relationship, and it's just quite rare these days to have.
Yeah,
so
that's
cool.
Really nice. It's nice to see your development, and it's nice to see other people in the industry, and we're all passionate people. It's good to share what we're doing as well, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. I think it's a really important part of it. Is talking about what you agree with, disagree with, what you like, what you don't like, because it's quite a tough industry, and it's nice to be able to have a sounding board in a friend and or an ex-colleague to just kind of confirm any kind of doubts you might have about things, which I think is important.
Yeah, it does. Helps you.
So just kind of the next question I wanted to ask was like similarly related to that, but and it's probably quite a difficult one for you to narrow down, but what would you say the 3 key moments are from your career so far?
3 key moments. Yeah, it's a great question. One that springs to mind straight away is back in my what I call the martial arts era, when I was still in my teens at this point, and I was really confused. I knew I wanted to do martial arts, but I loved martial arts, but I didn't know what to do and how to do it. And I read a book at the time. The book was called Shapeshifter, and it was by another martial artist called Jeff Thompson. And basically, the message in the book was, if you make your hobby your work, you'll never ever have to work again. Which, as a 19-year-old, really appealed to me, of like what you can actually do martial arts for a living. And he sort of showed or talked through how he made martial arts his life. And honestly, I read that book and it was literally transformational at the time. It was like, wow, this is it now. I'm going to be a full-time martial artist. And that kind of really opened up so many channels to me that just sort of at the time it was like, well, I'm going to have to get a job, get a normal job and earn money, and I can do martial arts. I was really confused. So I think that has to be one of those moments.
Yeah, fantastic.
And then the second one I'd say is then sort of moving from martial arts into strength and conditioning. And I had a great coach in Manchester, a guy called Carl Tanswell. He was an MMA coach, and he was very forward thinking, very, he's brilliant. Sometimes you don't realise at the time how good somebody is until you sort of work with other coaches and time elapses and you look back and you're like, Jesus, that guy was seriously high level. And he lent me a DVD, as I mentioned before, which was a Mike Boyle DVD. And I watched that, and it was like, bang, that opened up a new world, strength and conditioning. And so it was almost like, wow, there's all this new stuff now to learn that underpins everything that we do in martial arts, all the strength, the conditioning, the movement skills. Well, I don't know that much about that. So that was almost like, right, that's a completely new reservoir of information for me to jump into.
Fantastic.
And then, so that was really cool. That was really empowering. And then I think the third one is, there's been so many since then, but I want to say there was a time when I knew that I wanted to move my business into more of an online business, into an online world. People were asking for it, and I sort of knew that it was the most scalable way to grow a business, and it was the most impactful way you could reach more people. So there was a time when I said to myself, and I remember saying it to my girlfriend, who's now my wife at the time, I said, look, I just want to sell one thing online this year. I just want to get that process set up so that somebody clicks the right buttons in the right order and pays for this product. And I did, and it came. It was the right time, and it was when I set it up, and it came, and there was more than one. There was probably about 10 of this particular product, and I think that was honestly the time that I realised, this is where I see the future going from a business perspective for me now. I'm an educator at heart, and I'm an education entrepreneur, if you like, but I knew that to reach the people I wanted to reach, to grow the business in the way that I wanted to grow it, it had to be online. And so sort of mastering that small little process that now it just seems completely obvious, and anyone can do it, and anyone could have done it then, but it's just the fact that I did it, and it made the thing happen, the process worked. So that was the evolution of the company,
Yeah, fantastic. And I've just gone through a similar process myself with the extreme sports performance, and I think the one thing I was quite naive about is the time it takes for these things to actually happen, from start to finish. Like, there's so many hurdles that crop up along the way. I was pretty naive with time. Did you find that was a challenge that you also had, or were there any other kind of standout challenges when you set up that business?
Yeah, again, a really good question. I think everything always takes longer than you want it to take.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
I think you sort of just have to assume that. The way I've always done it naturally is, I suppose anyway, is to sort of shoot for it being done really quickly and almost assume that it's going to take a little bit longer than that. And then you might be a little bit disappointed, but the net result is that it's quicker than if you didn't approach it in that same way. So I think from a productivity perspective, it's just go at it hard, get it done as quick as possible, but also assume that there are going to be the odd little snag and challenge along the way that you're going to have to figure out, because especially when you're doing things for the first time, then you don't actually know what that process looks like. You think you do, but you can't plan that out to the T. It's when you've done it multiple times, you can plan your time more accurately. But when you're learning those processes, you just can't do that. And I think when you're starting things out in business and when you're getting going, it is still important to do some of that yourself as well, because otherwise you never really know what's going on in your own business. And there are definitely people who are better than you at every single asset or aspect of the job. But I think to have a mastery of those tasks so that you know what they look like and you know when somebody else is doing them for you down the line, if they're doing them in the right way, is really important. So the lesson, I suppose, is it's worth taking that time to understand the process and get the learnings from it, you know?
I do remember you saying, like, back in the past, there's a couple of things which have always kind of, I've always remembered. Well, just getting out of your own way was the first thing, and also just getting it. But it's better done than being perfect, because perfection is something that comes with, I think, repeating the process or a lot of experience. And if it's the first time you've done something, it's as much as you want it to be perfect, it's unlikely to happen straight away.
I know, and the thing is that you've got to think about the lens you look at things through, because you look at that, and I look at my projects, and you look at your projects, and we look at it through a lens that says, well, I'd love it to be like this, and this is the gold standard. But the lens that other people look at that through, they don't know what that looks like. So they look at your project from a different lens, and they might look at it and think, you might put something out there with a great respect that is 50% as good as you know it could be, but the customer thinks it's 150% better than they expected it to be. And so and therefore your feedback from the customer is what gives you the roadmap to change and improve your products, not the way that you view it.
Sure,
the customer tells you, doesn't it? Don't they? They give you that feedback in that way.
That's a really good point. I think that's also true in the gym. I found with athletes that sometimes when you have challenges with in different areas, whatever that is, with a certain athlete, and you put a program together thinking, well, I think this is a good starting point, but it's not perfect. But then the athlete progresses quicker than you'd ever imagine them or want them to, in a really positive way. You think, well, actually, it's pretty good. The feedback that I only judge a program based on the feedback the athlete gives me and how it feels, and what the positives are, rather than how good I think it is, which is again something I've learnt over time. But I think it's quite cool that you can apply the same kind of principles to business and also coaching. They're quite interchangeable.
Oh God, yeah. There's so many comparisons to draw there, and I really do feel fortunate for being having that strength and conditioning coach and coaching background, because it just influences everything. And I'm sure if I'd have come in through a different pathway, if I was from a totally different industry, that there would be parallels to draw. But I'm thankful that the S&C coaching gave me that, because you see people going through that process and the struggles that they're experiencing, and then the successes that they're getting. There's so many parallels to your business career and your business projects. It's just like working with an athlete, really. You're managing yourself or you're managing a project, but the parallels you can draw are really cool in a way, you know.
Yeah, no, exactly. No, it's great, and I think it's taken me a while to realise that, but it's more similar than you think.
Yeah.
So the next question that I had, I'm going to do a lot of top threes, just to kind of keep things short and sharp, because I think that's quite a valuable number, and it's quite easy for people to digest. Is top three. So my next top three question was, right now, what are your kind of top three areas of interest?
Yeah.
This can be in any area, by the way. Like, it doesn't necessarily have to be coaching or business, like anything.
Yeah. Well, I think the psychology side of things is something that I've enjoyed learning about. I'd say probably as a percentage, I've spent more time in the last few years reading and doing courses and things like that on the language and communication and psychology aspects of not just coaching but just in general, just learning those principles. So I'm really interested in that. I'm really interested in how we can improve communication ultimately, how we can, those 1%ers, those things that will just make the communication process a little bit easier, because I just think that is everything. That underpins coaching, that underpins business, that underpins your relationships, and so it sort of deserves quite a bit of time to be devoted to it. So I think it's got to be my number one.
Yeah.
The second area I think is I think it's an age thing, but I actually am getting more and more interested in economics and politics.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe they're my second and third, really, because
I
suppose I've never really had a strong interest, but I really enjoyed following the American presidential election and the whole social media influence and just that whole soap opera of that. And then I've always had an interest in how companies grow and how companies essentially are influence the economy in that way. And again, it's not like from a textbook standpoint, but just an applied standpoint, how companies like Amazon where they've chosen to locate their headquarters and why they've done that. Maybe it's for tax reasons, maybe it's the sourcing of local job talent and materials and things like that. So I suppose those two have become my side interests. I still watch some S&C content and read blogs, and the same with like the business and learning about business, but psychology and communication up there for sure at the top, and then maybe boringly, but economics and politics have definitely become a second and third interest there.
That's definitely not boring, mate. They make the world go round.
It's
so
true, isn't it? Yeah.
It's
they deserve attention, don't they?
They have to. You can't ignore them. And it's so every time you turn the telly on, it's the first thing you hear of. So I'd agree. My kind of papers of choice now have kind of come more towards the Financial Times and rather than the previous papers I'd read, which I won't name, but
let's not go into that.
No, we won't. I think that's a north-south preference as well. But anyway, I digress. So the next question I had was, what are the three most valuable things that you've learnt to date in your career in life that you carried with you kind of positively to where you are now?
Yeah, that's a huge question. That's a big one. It's hard to sort of say three. I think one thing that I've learned in the recent past, maybe the last 2 years, is really that things just ebb and flow. And so, if you're riding on the crest of the wave at the moment, it sounds negative, but that wave is going to dissipate. You aren't going to be on that wave forever.
Yeah.
And similarly, if you're stuck in a trough at the moment, if you're stuck in a rut, that isn't going to be forever either. So it's a good. I think for me, it's a good mantra to say, don't take the good things for granted, and don't dwell on the negatives, because they will change. If provided you push forward and you keep searching for those answers. So and I sort of think that you're quite often only 1% away from starting to see success, and you quite often may be only 1% away from starting to see failure. So it helps me philosophically
Mm-hmm.
to keep my foot on the pedal, and just to keep the attention to detail in what I do. And I've seen that. I don't just say it as a kind of philosophical statement. I've seen that in the last couple of years of learning, and the dark days, the sleepless nights, running a business, and you're thinking, what the hell are we going to do? How are we going to get these bills paid? And you do get through that, and you do see the successes, and now, touch wood, we're in a really good growth phase, but I don't take that for granted at all. I know that there's going to be more challenging periods ahead, and so that's definitely been a big learning in the last couple of years. I think the other ones are sort of aligned with that in a way, but bring in people or work with people who are better than you, recognise your strengths and weaknesses, frankly, and bring in those people, and bring people into your network that are better than you at those weaknesses that you've got, or those holes that need to be filled in whatever it may be that you're doing. And this could be S&C coaching, it could be business, it could just be your network in general. And that's when I've seen the biggest successes. It's been when we've worked together as a team, rather than when I've been purely trying to wade through the trenches on my own. You can go so far on your own, but you can only go so far on your own. So if you do have bigger aspirations, it's worthwhile thinking about bringing in people who can assist you with that, and just offload some of the challenges that you're facing a little bit, or share them. The whole problem shares, problem halved. It's a really empowering thing when you've got people on your team that are pushing in the right direction, that actually can make a difference as well. So that's been a big learning for me. And I think the final one, and I must say it might sound a bit boring again, but I think measure your performance.
Yeah.
Measure your performance, whatever it may be. Whether it's strength stuff, whether it's coaching, whether it's fitness related, or whether it's business, and even things like wellness, sleep. I think that the more you're able to measure something, the more you're able to get a handle on what is actually happening in your business, in your life, and in your health. And so when you do that, ultimately the cliche, the statement is, if you measure something, it improves. And it typically does, because you've got eyes on it. You're watching something, and so intrinsically you make a valid effort to change something, improve it.
Yeah.
And so I think if you let things go, and when I speak to personal trainers going through the courses, when I speak to business owners and people like that, I'm a mentor for the Prince's Trust as well. So I kind of work with some young aspiring entrepreneurs and help them with their business ideas. And when I speak to them and ask them about the numbers and what they've got, and how many leads they're bringing in per month, what's their conversion rate, very often they look at me with it's just blank, and you really can't make recommendations or make an impact or make meaningful change unless you know what the score is.
Mm-hmm.
I think those things are, because that's not my mentality either. Naturally, I'm more of an ideas, creative, vision type person, and just get stuff done, task focused individual.
Yeah.
But I've sort of grafted that to my game, and I'm not the best at it. And in the company, I have people who are better than me to sort of help me and work on those things. But I recognise the importance of it, and that data has to be to hand. So, yeah, those are my three things, mate, and I've rambled a bit there.
No, it's a great answer. There's a lot of golden nuggets there for people who may not have heard of any of those ideas or thoughts before. So, that's really useful. And there's always more than one thing going on, isn't there? Like, it's whether it's coaching a big team or group of athletes, or running a big business, that it's like a bit of a juggling act. That you have to. There's always balls in the air, and it's not easy. So I can completely connect with you on those points. So just moving on to the last couple of questions. You mentioned kind of in your introduction a couple of people that you've kind of touched base with or learnt from. Who would you say to date your top 3 influences are in business, in sport, in coaching?
Yeah, that's again a great question. I think in coaching, I would probably have to say the main person would be Vern Gambetta, and I would class Vern as a mentor, and he's been over to the UK, and I've sort of picked his brains a number of times and whatnot. But I think one of the main reasons he's an influencer for me is because he actually is accessible, and he writes content on a regular basis, just on a blog. He writes a very regular blog, and I find that content is digestible to me. It might be a 200 word short 2-minute read, but that's just reinforcing some of those lessons. So I think ethically and from a pedigree perspective, he's very good, but the way he just shares that content is accessible and makes him an influencer.
Yeah.
And I do like his mantra, his coaching philosophy sits well with mine. And there are many others from a coaching perspective that I could name, but I sort of think Vern is probably the main one. And then business and what mindset wise, I would probably have to say Seth Godin is the man for me there.
Yeah.
He's similar to Vern in a way. He writes a really regular blog, and they're really bite-sized type content that doesn't take long to read at all, but it's that drip feeding into your mind on a regular basis. And the books that he writes are written in a very accessible, consumable way, but really powerful lessons. And frankly, the guy's got an amazing following, and the way that people follow his work reinforces his pedigree. It's not a sort of guru worshipping way that some people out there try and almost sell off the back of it. But he doesn't do that. He's very, very soft sell, but the books and the content he puts out are just massively taken up, and the following that he's got is incredible. And the way that he talks about projects and getting things out there that are meaningful and really building things that you're proud of, that was certainly an influence, very much so in the early days, to sort of say, yeah, this is what I should be doing. I can't necessarily see the full scale or scope or the way that this is going to make money, but it just feels right to get this project out in front of people. And certainly in the early days when that's what I was doing. I was just creating products and creating courses. I didn't know what they were going to do. I didn't know if they were going to sell. I was learning by doing, and some sold and some didn't. But it felt like there's a body of work that I'm creating that is improving the industry, and it's a values-based approach, I think, that Seth kind of really talks about. And I suppose those two on the business and the coaching side of things. There are many others. I like people like Tony Robbins' stuff on the self-help and personal development side of things. There's other business gurus and people out there. I hate that word guru, but people out there that are doing a good job. But those two really stick prominently in my mind.
Fantastic. That's a great answer, and I'm a big follower of both of those two. I remember coming down to Leeds years ago with you and Vern, and going through a weekend workshop on speed and agility with him, and I was pretty much blown away by how simple his approach was, but also how effective the drills he was doing could be.
I remember that, and that I honestly, I think I go back to that workshop many times with people and just say, if you really want a full-on masterclass of movement, not just speed and agility, that is the one, because it would have been easy to think, well, the guy's in his 60s now, we're going to get drills that are coming from the 70s and 80s, but the guy is absolutely on the cutting edge still.
Yeah.
And it was amazing to see that hunger and the translation of some of the concepts that have been popularized in recent years into more applicable formats he was absolutely out there on the cutting edge there, wasn't he?
Yeah, it was a great drill. And I do often refer to, I think it was 2013. I could be wrong, but
something like that.
It was 4 or 5 years ago, but I still refer to those notes now, just to kind of confirm ideas and suspicions that crop up. But it's nice to be able to kind of have that resource, and also Seth's blog. He posts. Does he post a daily blog?
Yeah.
It's like it does at least one post, maybe 2 posts a day, which, and as you say, they're bite-sized chunks. So I'll make sure the links to those 2 are in the show notes for people to check out in their own time.
For sure.
So last few, mate. What are your kind of top 3 sports performance exercises or drills that you either do yourself or you use in your coaching practice still today?
Yeah, I mean, I think these days I look for real bang for your buck movements and drills. So, of course, things like deadlifts and squats and presses and pulls are going to be in there. But I think for my own training, one of the ones that I do a lot, movements I do a lot, is thrusters. So, this deep squat into an overhead press.
Yep.
And I typically do that with the bar on my back rather than in the front squat position. But you can do it in the front squat position. But just it's just such a bang for your buck exercise that you're getting a full deep squat with a reasonable weight, and you're getting an overhead press, and you're getting some level of metabolic conditioning within that as well. So the thruster is definitely in there. I think again, bang for your buck. You cannot get past high speed running as a drill or as an exercise, and whether it is on the treadmill or if it's out on the grass or on the track, it doesn't really matter. But just getting your body moving fast and explosively in a sprint movement is just so impactful, and again just covers so many bases. It's amazing when you haven't sprinted fast. Of course you're sprinting fast, but when you haven't done sprinting for some time, your core and your trunk, and even your lats as well, the day after, are just absolutely ruined, and you realise just what you're getting from that. So sprints essentially have got to be in there as well. And then I think another exercise that is just such a good one is I'll come back to my weightlifting background and say hang cleans. And the reason I say hang cleans is because you don't need a huge amount of technique to do that. You can get that. You can coach somebody a hang clean in 5 minutes, and they can be loading that by the end of the session if they've got the movement mechanics. And then it stays with you. That technique stays with you for forever. There's no reason why you'd ever drop that. And it's just a good sort of lower body power, but again, you've still got a good upper body component in there. It's a great exercise for any sports person that is involved in contact sports. You've got to drive the hips. You've got to use your upper body. You've got to use your traps and shrugs and your posture in there as well. So I think hand cleans with some decent weight, getting those hips through and really explosively catching it is a massive exercise for people as well.
Fantastic, great answers, and I definitely put big green ticks next to all of those myself. With my
I was gonna say sit ups. I don't know if they would qualify. I thought you might tell me off. I'm only joking.
You're trying to wind me up now. I don't
want to unleash the rhino.
No, don't. He's been quite tame lately, but there's there's, for those of people who aren't aware, there's a lot of research that's come out recently about crunches and sit-ups and then the negative effects that they can have on spine health, etc. So they're not something that I particularly like to use myself, or now that I'm not quite as young and spriteful as I used to be, but also with young athletes, I much prefer using more kind of anti-rotation, bracing type exercises for core work.
Makes sense.
But awesome, very great answers, and as I say, like it's just I think people find that interesting to know what you're using today. Not necessarily too complex, nice and simple, but as you know, simple things done with good consistency and high quality produce great results. So it doesn't have to always be ridiculously complex. So just kind of close up our chat, Bren. What have you got coming up this year? What events have you got coming up in the next couple of months? Anyone stand out for you? Any ones you're really looking forward to?
Yes, some good stuff happening this year. I am excited about this year, actually. I'm going over to the States in early March to speak at Ron McKeithree's Play Summit, or I think he calls it a lab.
Fantastic.
So there's it's a big gathering of S&C coaches and coaches in general, actually. So that's coming up in March. That's in Nashville. I'm going to do a talk on. It's kind of a talk that I think is going to be. I'm going to call it Take Control, and really focus on coaching skills, but also about how to implement it with yourself as opposed to others, and to get an appreciation of, like you have and I have, of having a few different things going on to, so if one doesn't happen for you, you've got something else, and a lot of coaches really struggle with that, and when the team changes or the structure changes, or frankly you just get laid off because the manager changes his mind, then you're out in the cold. So it's a talk that's focused around not letting that happen, basically.
Cool.
So looking forward to that, and then we're expanding the SCE network to, we've got I think 30 locations around the country now. So really looking forward to spreading that and pushing on with that. And then our youth program we just launched the specialist course. So we've got a pathway from, call it a youth assistant coach, youth coach, and now we've got the youth specialist. So really excited about the Youth Strength and Conditioning Association, because, it's one of those projects, again, it falls into the whole, this needs to happen, so let's make it happen type of philosophy.
Yep.
But we've actually had well over 100 coaches now go through that, and they're seeing really good results. They're seeing real good inroads into their communities with our content and our branding. So I'm really excited about growing that. And then I think I'm going to be doing a couple more talks. I'm speaking at the Elite Sports Performance Expo in London in, I want to say June. No, it's May. It's May, that one.
Okay.
So I'm going to do a talk there on injury prevention. So yeah, it's going to be a busy year this year. We've hired a few new people in the office, in the company as well. So we want to obviously keep pushing the business and growing the courses and making meaningful changes to that as well.
Fantastic. No, that's great, Brendan. There is a lot to look forward to this year, and it's started well with the Winter Olympics on at the moment. Like I've kind of just been glued to the telly, just watching these crazy sports that I've never really kind of seen before, and just think that, wow, sport's such a cool thing, and to be able to be a part of that or be involved in it is really exciting.
Did you see any of the half pipe?
I did. There's some shock.
Amazing. That is absolutely unbelievable.
Some shock wins there, especially in the slope style as well.
It's just such a cool sport to watch. It makes you want to get out there and have a go at that, because they've got some hang time. They look like they're having really good fun out there.
It was very cool to watch, and I think the weather was challenging for quite a lot of them, especially in the women's slope style, with the wind being so high. But I've just actually got back from snowboarding myself. Actually, went up to Scotland for a few days, and there was actually too much snow.
Really?
They had to shut the mountain for most of the time we were there, so unfortunately I only got one day in, but it's just cool. And
where do you go up there then? Which mountain do you
we stayed in Aviemore, and then we went to it's the Kegnor Mountain, and it actually goes up. It's actually pretty high. It goes up to over 3,000 feet, and there's like a big gondola that takes you up there. and to snowboard all the way down from the top run, it's probably about a good 15-minute ride. So it's
Really?
it's decent. Yeah, it's decent.
That's awesome.
I just think it's they just because it's obviously smaller than most of the resorts you get in the Alps. It's not, they haven't quite got the capacity to manage high volumes of snow. But
Yeah, sure.
it was cool.
Yeah.
It's
good that you can do that so close, though, isn't it?
Bit of a long drive, but it was literally get in the car, a few service stations, and you're there. So it's cool. So just to close, Bren, thanks for your time, and sharing your wisdom and shining lights on areas people might not have thought about before. Where, if people wanted to get in touch with you, how could they do that? Where can they find you?
Yeah, I'm pretty much available on all the usual social media platforms. So, it's Brendan Chaplin on all of them. I think most frequently I'm on these days anyway, Instagram and Facebook, but I do check the others as well. So that's probably the easiest way. And then send me a message or drop me a comment or something on one of them, and we can go from there. But the company website is strengthandconditioningeducation.com, and so you can find out about all our courses on there. And then my personal website is brendanchaplin.com, and at the moment I'm writing a weekly, I call it the high performance newsletter.
Cool.
So I'm writing a weekly post, a weekly article on that, which is focused around training, business and mindset. So sometimes it's about how to improve your public speaking, other times it's about how to get a sub 7 minute 2k row, and it just sort of anything and everything in between that really. So if you're into business, mindset, fitness, training, that sort of thing, it'll be probably worthwhile you checking that out. And so check that out on brendanchaplin.com.
Wicked. I'll make sure that's in the show notes so people can check it out for themselves.
Yeah,
I think we'll leave it there. Thanks for your time. And all the things we chatted about. I hope everyone has found those useful and enjoyed listening to our chat. And make sure you stay tuned in to the upcoming episodes of our podcast, and we'll be back very soon with another episode. Thanks for listening to the second episode of the Extreme Sports Performance Podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show. Please don't hesitate to leave us a rating or review on your listening platform of choice. If you haven't already, please check out our website. We have weekly blogs on our blog page. You can sign up to our monthly newsletter via our sign up page. Our online store consists of personal coach, training programs, nutrition plans, interactive training systems, toolbox, and coming very soon, membership packages. We also have several social media platforms: Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Links to all these can be found at the bottom of every page on our website or via any search engine. That's all for now. Until next time, take care.